add a column inside a row repeater. So instead of following the lengthy procedure, we'll try to use the standard code from the documentation. But while adding this column, you need to maintain data binding. That is important for us. While adding a column to row repeater, as a developer, you need to maintain data binding between OData ABAP field and screen element property. Maintain data binding between OData service field and screen element property. So after that, what we can do is, if you want to fetch the data coming from OData service, then we have to go for step 3. In step 3, what we can do is first repeat that step 2. In step 3, you can repeat that step 2 for n number of columns. In step 3, you can repeat step 2 for n number of columns by maintaining data binding. And then step 4, if you want to bring the data coming from OData service, then what you need to do is you need to consume OData service, and you have to create a model object. Create model object and consume OData ABAP service. If you want to bring the data from backend system, create model object and consume OData service. Then step 5, set the model to row repeater. You have to set the model to a row repeater screen element. And after that, step 6, you have to bind rows to row repeater with entity set of OData service. We have to bind the rows to entity set of OData service. You have to bind the rows to row repeater screen element, because row repeater is the actual screen element, and you have to maintain binding rows with entity set of OData service. Then last step, it is very common, place row repeater on content. Place row repeater on content. So let us implement this and let us understand how that row repeater will appear on the screen. So let me go to our coding part, and I don't want to use a table now. Instead of table, I want to use a row repeater. I want to use row repeater screen element with OData service. In SAP documentation, they have provided with static data. In real time, that is not useful. We always bring the data by consuming OData service. So what you can do is, according to step 1, let us create a row repeater object here. According to step 1, we'll try to create a row repeater object here. new sap.ui.commons. sap.ui.commons dot, you can use row repeater, there's a class name, that is step 1. So row repeater is a class belongs to the same package, sap.ui.commons. And after that, you can use some methods here. Row repeater dot, you can use some set design. I'm using like standard. Standard is one of the design here. And for every page in row repeater, I want to set 5 rows or for example 10 rows. Under row repeater, I want to set 10 rows for every page. So you can use set something like number of pages or number of rows. And I'm setting some 10 rows here. In each page, I'm expecting 10 rows. And then you can use like row repeater dot set current page, and you can set something like first page as a current page here. So this is how you can create a row repeater object. According to step 1, this is how you have to create row repeater object. After that, what I'll do is I'll try to take the code from documentation to add the columns. So this is what we are going to do in shortcut manner. In step 2, we can use the standard code available in documentation, that is for adding a column. But when you're adding a column, you need to take care of data binding to populate the records. So I'm just taking the standard code from this documentation. You can see here row repeater, and you can see there is a source code. There is a source code. From source code, I'm taking some standard code here for adding the column. This is for adding the column. I can use like this. And you can see here to add a column, for example, I want to use like this. This is the first column. This is the first column. Let me copy that as it is. And the point here is, this is important for us. Add column 1. In my case, I want to add a column with a text field. So you can use that here. Text field, binding with value property. Whenever you use text field, I said you need to use a value property, and I want to display, for example, first name coming from OData web service. Okay, let me open our OData service also to avoid confusion. Let me take the simple service here, that is Z users project. You can see Z users project contains some fields. I'm expecting these fields, and I'm expecting the records of these fields in the row repeater screen element. So let us use this email, first name, last name, age, and address. So at present, we have added a column 1. And similarly, why don't you repeat this procedure? As I said in the procedure, you can repeat step 2 for any number of columns. According to step 3, you can repeat that step 2 for any number of columns. So let us do that. Copy this. Add column 2 and just observe carefully. Under column 2 also, I am using a text field with, for example, last name. Last name is the field I'm expecting. I'm expecting last name records here, so you have to maintain a data binding here. And we have to maintain data binding with value property. We have to maintain data binding with value property, so you have to use a value property in case of a text field. If you are using a text view, you have to use a text property here. So based on the screen element, this property will be decided, and that you will understand with experience or with our training sessions. But SAP will never say that for so-and-so screen element there is a so-and-so important property. Okay, so with experience or with training, you can understand these things. So I'm using a text field. Let us make it value property at present. And let me add column 3. I'm adding column 3. And under column 3, I'm expecting email. And similarly, column 4. Column 4, I'm expecting, for example, age. So here we are maintaining data binding. So be careful. That is important for us. Remaining thing, you can take it from the documentation. And one last column I want to add, that is address, because our OData service contains address field. So let me use that here. And after this, there is one more last line that you should take from documentation. Let me copy that as well. This one. After adding all the columns, you have to add this row to the row template. And that row template is internally created as part of standard coding. So this also don't forget here. Add column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, etc., etc. Then this line is also important as part of documentation. It is available. Now, this documentation says that data is coming with static approach. The data is coming with a static approach here, but in our case, we are not using a static approach. We need to bring the data from OData service. That's the reason why we have to create a model object and consume OData service. Create model object and consume OData service is same like your previous examples. So let me write that here, where model object equal to new sap.ui.model.odata model. And within this brackets, you can provide all your options. So let me go to gateway client to get that service URL. I'm going to gateway client to get the service URL. After copying that, paste it here. Same like yesterday, we are creating a model object. So that's a very common step in order to get the data from OData web service. And now we have to set the model to row repeater. You have to set the model to row repeater. So let us do that. You can use our row repeater object and dot. You can use set model and place your model object here. Very simple. We are setting model object to row repeater. So technically, you can call this as a model binding. Setting model object to a specific screen element, that we technically call it as model binding. Then we have to bind the rows to, you have to bind rows to row repeater with entity set of OData service. We have to bind the rows to row repeater with entity set of OData service. So what is our entity set? Let us recognize from here. So user set is our entity set. So let me take that here. You can use row repeater dot bind rows and slash. You can provide that user set, it is case sensitive, and after that you have to use this particular row template here. This is taken from documentation, so as it is you provide here. In case of drop down, what we have done, we have used bind items and we have used entity set, comma, we have provided list item. And in case of a radio button group, we were using bind items, and we were passing something like entity set and comma, we were using items object. Similarly, similar to radio button group, drop down group, you have to provide entity set with row template here. So after that, you can place row repeater on content. So the last 4 steps are very common. It is common for table, drop down, radio button group, and now row repeater also. The last 4 steps are common even if you use table, drop down box, radio button group, and row repeater. So let me test it. If there is any problem, we'll try to rectify. Right click here, run as web application preview. So let me copy that and let me check it in. So now you can see we are able to get a row repeater, and row repeater looks like this. So that is it looks almost like a table, but you will get a scrolling option like this. It almost looks like a table, but you'll get a scrolling option from page to page. Okay, but here you can see we are able to populate the records. We are able to populate the records here inside a row repeater, but they are available in the form of text fields. They are available in the form of text fields here. So instead of using text fields, you can use text view. You can use something like images. You can use rating indicator or progress indicator, etc., etc. So let us do some more things here. I want to add all these columns with text views. I'm using text view, so you can use a text property here. You can use text view, so you have to use text property. So let us see the difference here. Let us see how it appears on this output screen after refreshing. So now you can see it looks like this. Of course, you can add the column labels, but this is how it looks like. So that is the use of a row repeater. It can display collection of records, but with a scrolling option. And here, say for example, I want to add some images. I want to add some rating indicator or a checkbox, progress indicator or a button. So let us do all those things. And let me write a note here. Inside row repeater, we can add columns with different screen elements. So row repeater column can be displayed with text view, and you can also use a text field. And you can also make use of something like button. You can also use a button in row repeater with some text property. And we can also use image with SRC property. A row repeater column can display rating indicator with value property, and it can display progress indicator also. It can also display progress indicator with percent value property. So whenever you are using screen elements, you should use its corresponding properties, otherwise it won't work. So let me try some of these things, and of course you can also use like a checkbox with checked property here. So under row repeater, we can add different screen elements. So row repeater is also part of a complex category here. Row repeater will allow you to add different screen elements. So that's the reason why row repeater comes under a complex option according to the documentation here. You can see there is a complex category, and complex category contains a row repeater here, because this is one of the reason. We can add different screen elements, so let me add some few of them. I have shown you how to use text view. I have shown you how to use text field. Now let me go with an image, checkbox, rating indicator, progress indicator, etc. So it's very simple. You can keep on adding the columns here. You can repeat this column related coding. You can repeat that column related coding. Column 6, you can repeat that. I want to add an image, so you can use image, and it contains SRC, and I'm expecting green color image for every record. I'm expecting green color image for every record, so you need to use set property method. If you are expecting same value for every record, then use set property method. Otherwise you have to use bind property method. In this example, I'm expecting same image for every record, so we have to use set property. So that is one thing you need to know. So that is one thing you need to know. And similarly, I want to add column 7. Let me copy that same code. And I want to use, for example, rating indicator. I'm using rating indicator, and rating indicator contains value property, and I'm expecting something like default rating as 3. I'm expecting same rating for every record, then you have to use set property instead of bind property. If you're expecting same value for every record, then you have to use set property instead of bind property method. So these are some of the shortcuts you need to know. And then you can add one more column. And here, for example, I want to add something like progress indicator. Before that, let me add checkbox. I'm adding checkbox, and I'm expecting same status for checkbox. So you have to use checked property with set property method. I'm expecting, for example, checkbox with selection, so you can use true here. You can use checkbox with selection, so if you pass a true value. And don't forget, checkbox always contains checked property. I'm expecting same status, so we have to use set property method. Same value, same status I'm expecting for checkbox for every record. So you have to use set property instead of bind property method. So like that, you can try different things. And first, let me test these things and let us observe how it works. So I'm trying to refresh the screen. So let me test it in the external browser. Let me copy this URL. Let me copy that URL. So you can see now We are getting some records here. What's the problem? Let me check. So here you can see we are able to get some images and rating and then checkbox here. Image, rating, checkbox. Similarly, for any column, if you want to add a button, then that is also possible. For example, for first name, I want to add a button, then why don't you use that button class here? Use button class and let us test it here. Now you can see, let me copy that URL. So now you can see there is a button for the first column inside row repeater. So that is how it will appear. And don't forget here, these are the records that are coming from the backend SAP system, but inside this particular documented table, the records are coming because of the static data here. Are you getting my point? So in this documentation, row repeater is created with static data, but in our case, we are deviating from this and we are adjusting our code such that it is getting data from OData service. So please notice that. So let me copy that complete code. Now, but here, if you closely observe the screen, if you closely observe this output screen, in our case, scrolling is okay, but I'm not satisfied with the appearance of this particular row repeater. Scrolling option is good, that is fine, but I'm not satisfied with the appearance of this particular row repeater. Or if you are not satisfied with the appearance of a table or a drop down checkbox or something like a roadmap. So if you are not satisfied with the default appearance given by SAP, then in that case, you need not worry. As a developer, we can apply some CSS concept here. We can apply some CSS concept here, cascading style sheet. So what I mean to say is CSS is one of the concepts which will try to change the appearance of the screen according to requirement. CSS will allow a developer to provide the appearance according to his requirement instead of depending on SAP given appearance. So let me write a simple note here. CSS, that is cascading style sheet. It is used to provide the properties for changing the look and feel. That is nothing but appearance. CSS can be used to provide custom appearance for SAP UI5 as well as Fiori screen elements. CSS can be used to provide custom appearance for SAP UI5 as well as Fiori screen elements. So CSS generally contains below properties like border, like background color, and background image, something like that, and some padding and some text color, etc., text color. And you can also use margin. You can use margin. We can use something like font size, font style, font alignment, text alignment. I'm not sure about text alignment, but font alignment is available, and of course text alignment is also available. Sorry, font alignment I'm not sure, but text alignment is available. And letter spacing, what should be the gap? Letter spacing, what should be the gap between each and every letter? And you can also use some different properties like visibility, etc., etc. There are several options. So in simple words, I can say the main purpose of CSS is to just to change the look and feel, or I can say it is to change the appearance of our screens and screen elements. It can be SAP UI5, it can be SAP Fiori, but CSS purpose is same. So at present, we'll try to apply CSS on our UI5 screen. In the coming classes, the same thing I'll try to show with Fiori as well. So let us do this. So according to step 1, what we need to do is we have to create one .css file. According to step 1, we have to create one .css file. Okay, so please remember that. And step 2, of course, what you need to do is you create .css file. You have to create .css file and maintain CSS properties. That is part of step 1. And then in step 2, we have to refer CSS file in our program. We have to refer CSS file in our program. Then step 3, you have to add style class. You have to add our CSS style class to SAP UI5, or it can be a Fiori screen element here. In shortcut, I wrote 3 simple steps to change the look and feel of UI5 or a Fiori screen element. So this is a general procedure. I wrote CSS in SAP UI5 or Fiori, but today we are going to discuss with UI5. When I go for Fiori, I'll use the same properties when I use a Fiori concept. Okay? So let us do that. According to step 1, let us create one .css file and let us maintain some CSS properties. So CSS means, no need to get confused here, it is cascading style sheets. That's a full form. And CSS properties will be maintained in .css file. That's the extension of your file. .css is the extension of the properties in which you maintain, and let us do that here. Let me go to some web content. Then let us right click new and go to other section. You can right click your web content folder because web content folder is your root folder. So right click and then go to other section. And in other section you can see there is a web folder here. There is a web folder, and expand that web folder and choose CSS file. So let me write that simple procedure. Right click web content. Choose new, other, and expand web folder and select CSS file. We have selected CSS file. Just click on next and provide some file name. For example, my style. I'm just providing our file name as mystyle.css. Then just click on next, then click on finish. So it will open one file like this. So this is what we need to do as part of step 1. Within that step 1, we are following all these internal steps. And after creating a file, what we need to do, we have to maintain CSS properties. I'll try to provide some text color, background, some padding, margin, font size, font style, some properties I'll try to provide, and we'll understand how it will be reflected. So here, what you can do is you can use dot some my style. For example, that is my style class name. Dot my style. You can give dot XYZ. It doesn't matter. So in my case, I'm using my style. That is the style class name. Technically, we call it as a style class name. Technically, we call it as style class name. And within that, you can use some flower brackets here. And within these flower brackets, you can use like border. I want to use some border, for example, 5 pixels with solid green. Something like that. And I want to use some border style. You can see there are several properties. Border style, I want to use something like solid. And text color. Text color, I want to use, for example, red. And background, I want to use, for example, orange. And background image also I want to use. Background image I want to use. For example, I want to use this image as a background for our row repeater. I want to use this image as a background for row repeater. So let me provide that here. URL, and within that you can provide something like Sachin dot some JPG is our file name. And this background repeat, I don't want to repeat that background, so you can use like no repeat. And padding, I'm using something like 15 pixels here. And visibility, I want to use true. I think visibility, we should use some visible. You can see here, visible, hidden, etc., etc. So I'm using visible. And I want to use like font weight. These are all simple things, okay? There is no need of going in detail. You know what is color, visibility, etc. So I'm straight away writing these things. So I want to use something like bold. And then I want to use some text alignment. And you can use left, right, center, etc., etc. In my case, I'm using text alignment left. And you can use some font size. I'm using font size, for example, 15 pixels here. And similarly, I want to use some font style. Font style, I want to use something like italic. Italic. And you can use some margin from left side. You can use margin from left side, margin from right side, margin from top, and margin from bottom. Margin left, margin right, margin top, bottom. So all these properties are applicable. So I'm using margin from left side, for example, 10 pixels here. And the main margin, I want to use 50 pixels here. And similarly, I want to use some letter spacing here with some 1 pixel. Between each and every letter, I want to display 1 pixel gap. So that is how. If you use control space, you'll get some properties here. You'll get some properties. You'll get properties for padding, properties for margin, properties for border, and properties for text, background, colors, etc., etc. So we can use all these things here. Just use control space, you'll get all the properties. So this is what you need to do. Whatever the properties you want to use it in one separate .css file. That is according to step 1. Create CSS file and maintain CSS properties. Maintain below CSS properties. So let me copy this. So that is part of step 1. So don't forget here, we are trying to maintain all the properties in one separate file. We are maintaining all these properties in a separate file. So that file should be referred in our actual program. That file should be referred in our actual program. And I want to refer this particular CSS file in my index.html. So that's the reason why I can use like this here. I can provide some option here like link, and under link you can use relative equal to style sheet. You can use style sheet, and the type of that style sheet is equal to, you can use text by CSS, and href text by CSS, and href is equal to our CSS file name you have to provide. In our case, CSS file name is mystyle.css. So that is how you have to refer your style sheet in your actual program. So this line is just to refer so and so CSS file in our actual program. So this is to refer a CSS file in our program. So go to index.html file and on top implement below line. So that is nothing but step 2. Type is text by CSS and this is our CSS file name which we have created. And third step, step 3, you need to add CSS style class to our Sap Ui5 or a Fiori screen element. We have to add our CSS style class to Sap Ui5 or a Fiori screen element. So to do that, so in our case, we are trying to attach to row repeater. In our case, I want to attach that style class to row repeater, but you can also attach that style class to a table or a drop down or checkbox or graph, whatever. But in this example, I want to attach a CSS style class to a row repeater. So whatever the properties you wrote here, they will be applicable and they are adapted to a row repeater. But the same type of concept you can follow to adapt those CSS properties to a table or a graph or whatever. So here you can see I am going to a row repeater here. Here I am using row repeater object dot, you can use add style class. There is one common method for every screen element. Every screen element contains one common method that is nothing but add style class. You can see that here. Add style class. So add style class method is not applicable only for row repeater. It is applicable for table, drop down, checkbox and every screen element in UI5 and Fiori. So please remember that. At present we are applying for row repeater, but it can also be applicable for a table. So please notice that. Method name is same. So let me use that add style class and within double quotes you can provide your style class name. That's it. So row repeater dot add style class, in double quotes you provide style class name. That's it. And you have to add your style class to a screen element before placing it on the content. Otherwise there is no use. You have to add your style class to a screen element before placing it on content. So please notice that. Very simple. And let me test it. Let me right click here, run as web application preview. So let me test it in the external browser. It is not applied, so there may be some problem. Let me rectify here. Row repeater dot add style class and my style, that is okay. I think that file is not saved. This is not saved. Let me save it and let us refresh. Now you can see it is reflected here. And let me test it in external browser. After refreshing, now you can see the difference. So this is a row repeater. Our data is displayed with respect to row repeater, and at the background we have added several options using a CSS properties. You can see that. This is how it looks like. So by default, the appearance of row repeater is not up to the mark. It is not satisfactory. That's the reason why wherever you feel dissatisfaction, there you can apply your CSS properties. Okay, so that is how you can make your screens more and more something like high class appearance. You can have your screens with high class appearance by using CSS properties. So that is one thing you need to notice. And you can see here, there is one more option. There is one more option here. Whenever I place a cursor, then only I want to apply the properties. Otherwise, it should be normal. Whenever I place a cursor on row repeater, then the properties should be applied. If I come out of that screen element, the properties should disappear. So then how to do that? It's very simple. You can open your CSS file. And here, what you can do is you can use hover. For your style class, what you can do is you can put colon and you can use hover. You can use hover. You can see this. So whenever you place cursor on row repeater, then these properties will be adapted. If you come out of that row repeater, the properties will be disappear. So because of hover property here. You may be using somewhere, but let us test it now. I'm applying for row repeater. It is not refreshed. So now you can see I'm testing it in external browser. Just observe. Now you can see row repeater is displayed with a default SAP appearance. But when I place a cursor, then the appearance will change. If I come out of that row repeater, the appearance will be normal. You can see the difference. Okay. When I place a cursor onto row repeater, the CSS properties are adapted. If I come out of that row repeater, then it will be normal. So that is possible because of hover property, H-O-V-E-R. So you can see the difference. And not only that, you can also use a rotate option here. You can also make use of a rotate option for this particular screen element. So let us try that. I'm going to a .css file, and I don't want to use hover. Let me remove that. And I want to add one property that is like transform. Transform colon, you can use rotate. Transform, rotate is one of the option, and in that I want to rotate with, for example, minus 15 degrees. Minus 15 degrees. So you can use like that. transform colon rotate with -15 +15 or whatever. We can apply these things and let us test it. Let me refresh here and let me test it in external browser, and you can see I think there is some problem. Let me check. Okay, let me test it in external browser once. So you can see here, this is how it looks like. There is minus 15 degrees rotation. You can see the entire row repeater is displayed with minus 15 degrees rotation because of transform property in CSS. So you can make several properties like that. You can do with trial and error method. The only thing is you can do some R&D on this one just by going to this, put control space and try some properties here. Okay, so that is how you can use it. And I'm going to explain the same CSS concept even for our theory. Okay, so the procedure is slightly different, but I'll be using the same properties in standard screens. Okay. Yeah, hello students. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Let us be specific to today's class, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me.
Hello sir, this is Praveen here.
Yeah, Praveen.
Sir, can we have any number of CSS files, or is it any, do we have any limitation on that?
We can have any number of CSS files, or else you can do like this also. You can also add one more. You can put comma here. You can use dot my style 2, and there you can add some more properties.
Okay, so again,
within the same CSS file, you can add multiple style classes.
Okay, again we have to refer the style class to the UI element.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Then.
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah.
Venkat here. Yeah. When we were doing that table, you did, I mean, some changes in the top, if you go into the index.html, I mean, is that similar to this style? Like on the top, at the top, if you go here, I think you did some.
I just added this line to refer the CSS file.
Yeah, CSS okay, but when we are doing the table, I think you have added some at the top data SAP UI theme something, right?
No. For table, you can use any theme. Theme is not important, but when you are using a table, you have to register this table related library, sap.ui.table.
Okay, so I mean to say, like when you use this theme, is that similar to this, CSS, or is that something else? Like here we have more properties.
You mean to say SAP UX? SAP UX
right,
is one of the theme. SAP UX is one of the theme that is a standard theme given by SAP, which contains all the standard CSS properties.
Okay.
Okay. Theme internally contains the CSS properties given by SAP.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Are you getting my point? Yeah. Then what about others?
Okay.
Instead of using standard theme with standard properties, we are trying to add our own properties. That's the only difference.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing, Vijay. Like basically, the difference between table and row repeater is, I mean, only in appearance wise, right? Nothing else, or is there any?
There won't be any much different. There is no specific scenario for row repeater, no specific scenario for table. The only thing is appearance.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Then what about others?
Hi, sir. Gaurav here.
Yeah, Gaurav.
Sir,
Yeah,
actually, I
Gaurav.
have some. Yes, sir. I have some personal questions, so I will call you after this class, and then please answer the call, sir.
Okay. Then what
Thank
about
you, sir.
others?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, Sheshu. Okay. Yes, yes, we are going to do that. We are going to do that. Based on the selection screen input, we can get the output. We are going to do that in this batch. I am going to explain that technique. You need not worry. So you can just follow according to our sequence. So my sequence will be like, I'll make more comfortable in the beginning and slowly we'll go into complex things. Yeah. Then what about others?
Muted.
Saroj, Soumendra.
Sir, sir, Saroj here.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, in order to, while generating the runtime artifacts in DPC extension class, methods are not appearing. Yesterday also I have given a mail regarding that.
Let me go to your. You are talking about methods.
Yes, sir.
DPC extension. Now you can see I am able to see the methods, but you are unable to see the methods.
Yes, yes, sir.
That is the point. So what you do is go to utilities settings.
Yes.
Utility settings and choose something like display inherited components also.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Choose this option, display inherited components also.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and don't disturb other things. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Then what about other students? Sri Harsha, Sunil, Swadin, Tina.
Yes, yes, Vijay, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Sunil here.
Yeah, Sunil.
Vijay, we are creating this model. Yeah, we are creating this model object, right? See, for table, we created one model object. Is this same object we can use for other things also?
Screen elements.
Right, drop-down box.
Yes.
Can we use the same model object?
Yes, why not? Sure, definitely you can use it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. Every day I'm explaining a few screen elements. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
Every day I'm explaining one separate screen element and I'm using one separate model object. But what we can do is we can refer this model object for different screen elements also. A row repeater, table, graph. At a time you can use that model object for multiple screen elements.
Okay, so we can just use one model object for one project.
It need not be like that. It can be.
We can.
It can be, and you can also follow a different approach. You can create different model objects for different services.
Okay.
So in my case, I am using this model object for Z user project, but you can create another model object for another service.
Why? Because I created one model object for our table. Then you explained us about that drop down. I created another model object and attached that drop down thing to that new model object. It didn't work. So I had a confusion whether we can go with two or we should go only with one. No, anyway, there could be some other problem that I will try to fix it.
You can use any combination. In your case, you did not get the output because of some other reason. But the
possible
reason is not regarding this one. You can have one model pointing to one service, and that model can be used by different screen elements.
Okay.
But in your case, the output is not appearing because of some other reason, not because of this.
Okay. One more.
You just send that code to me once.
I will do that. And one more point. See, in today's class, for example, that checkbox, we have given it static, like for all the rows, a checkbox. Now, can we put a condition like if age is greater than 30, only
Yes,
then
yes, yes. So
checkbox
what
to
you
be
can do
activated?
is, I explained a concept like a formatter function in table. The same formatter
Yes,
you can
yes.
write it here.
Okay, okay, we can use it here. Okay.
Yes, the same formatter you can try with row repeater as well. So
I
for
will
every record, it will try to check the condition.
based on that condition, it will get ticked.
Yes.
I will try that. In case any doubt, I will get back to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's it.
Then Sumit, and who is this Shivani? Okay, then Rohit, Rakshit,
Yeah, I'm audible.
Mohan.
Hello.
Yeah, Neeraj.
Yeah, I have two questions, Vijay. First is in today's class in row repeater, under
Okay.
the method bind rows, we usually give, I think in couple of classes I've seen we give the entity set.
Yes.
But here today we have given O row template also.
Yeah, this we have used. This you have to follow according to our radio button group syntax. In case of table, we need not provide this, but in case of our drop down radio button group row repeater, we have to apply this one. That is compulsory. In case of radio button group also, I've used like this. You can check that bind items, and we were using like user set, and then we were using some something like item list object.
Okay.
Okay, and when we were using drop down also, we were using bind items, and we were using some entity set, and comma, we were using some list item object. Okay, so similarly for row repeater, we are using like row template, that is like collection of, it is going to hold collection of records.
Okay.
Are you getting my point? So row template in row repeater is going to hold collection of records, which is coming from our entity set.
Yeah, got it. Got it. And the second thing is that regarding you're saying that you need to install a plugin, SV plugin.
Yeah, in your case, I saw your mail. When I saw your mail, I found that you are not able to display the graph. That might be because in your browser, SVG's Adobe Reader, I think, SVG Adobe, I'm not sure about Adobe, but it is SVG software. Yesterday I was talking about that. Scalar vector graphics. So if that plugin is not available in browser, then it won't display. It will say that not supportable, or it will say no data. Okay, so what you do is
normally in Google.
What you do is in google.com, what you do is from there download something like SVG viewer. Okay, let me check here. You can see something like SVG viewer. You can see that. You can download from here and try to install, and browser will take automatically. Are you getting my point? And other students also, please notice this. Adobe SVG viewer, you can download, and it will be taken into browser automatically after installing. Neeraj, are you getting my point?
Yes, Vijay, I'll do that.
Yeah. And other students, if you are unable to display the data in a graph, then you also do the same thing. Okay, then Raja, Rakshit, no doubts. Then Tanmay is absent today. Harshavardhan, no doubts. Okay, then Deepthi, Deepthi, and then Alok. Alok is offline. Abhijit. Abhijit. Then Aslam.
Hello, Vijay.
Yeah.
Hello. Vijay,
Yeah.
Ravi here.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah, Vijay, I tried to bind the this table property with the whatever the user IDs you have provided before, user D3 and all.
No,
I'm
don't
not
do that. Try with user D19 and SAP UI 123 because those
oh,
user IDs are some user IDs are not working.
okay,
So
Vijay.
try to use user D19 SAP UI 123 in your coding part.
Okay, and Vijay, you have said that link used proxy and the remaining things. Can you send it once, that link?
That link, okay. Yeah, I pasted that yesterday in your chat box.
Yesterday I missed the class,
Okay, no
so
problem. I'll send it again.
yeah, Vijay. And Vijay, in the CSS file, we are maintaining the style class and we are defining some properties.
Exactly.
And you have said that that style property we can use for many things. And if for some UI element, if that style properties are not considered for that, it's not applicable. Like if the table properties are there, the same style property is.
No, remember, I'm not talking about, I think you have misunderstood my point. So I'm not talking about these properties. You can see every screen element has some properties.
Okay.
Every screen element has some properties here. I'm not talking about these properties. These properties are different from CSS properties.
Yeah.
Okay. CSS properties will be common for every screen element. It can be, you can use border, you can use, they are general properties. But
okay, and like in the table we will color the different rows, row by row we will color. If the same style, if we apply for the some combo box or something, whatever we are using, is it
then in
will
that
throw
case,
error? Or?
in that case, you can use different style classes.
Okay.
In
It
that
will throw
case,
error.
yeah, in that case, you can use different style classes here. Let me open that. Here, just use like this. Put comma here.
Okay.
Then you can use dot my style, something like 2, and put flower brackets and write other properties here. And similarly, you can do that.
Okay, Vijay. Just a small doubt for you.
Then Soumendra. Soumendra, no doubts. Srikanth. Sumit. Vasant. Vasant, can you hear me? Sumit, any doubts? Sri Harsha? Okay. Okay, students, so I'll stop for today, and tomorrow we are having a class. Tomorrow we are going to discuss some more concepts. Okay?
Hello.
Hello, students, can you hear me? Can you see my screen? What about others? Can you see my screen? Okay. So in today's class, we are going to discuss creating form in SAP UI5, and we are going to discuss assigning values to form fields, and then we'll understand how to capture values from form fields. Then if required, we'll try to assign a style class to a form. So these are the 4 things we'll try to discuss in today's class: creating form, assigning values to form, capturing values from form fields, and assigning a style class to a form. So whenever you want to take a form, you need to, whenever you need to include sap.ui.layout package. So form is one of the screen element. Form is one of the screen element available in sap.ui.layout library. And just understand how exactly I'm creating a form. So I can go to a documentation. You can see under documentation, there is a form concept. There's a form concept here. There's a form concept. In that form, you can see there is a simple form option here. There is a simple form, and they're trying to show you how to create a form here. But you need to understand creating a form is very simple, but you need to understand how to capture values from form. So first of all, I'll take the sample code. I'll take the sample code from this documentation. After that, we'll try to understand its behavior. So you can see there is some standard code here for form creation. There is a standard code available in form creation. Let me take it as it is. And first of all, make sure that you are registering a package or a library that is sap.ui.layout. That is compulsory whenever you are using a form option. SAP UI layout, you should register that. Then you can just implement this standard code given by SAP here. You can implement that standard code as it is here. And the main point here is I want to take only few fields. So let me remove unwanted fields here. I want to make it as simple as possible. Some unwanted fields here. So you can see here in this particular form, we are taking several fields. We are taking several fields, and along with fields, we are trying to use its label. Along with fields, we are trying to use its label. So you can see here label and a text field. Label, text field. So everywhere we are using that. Label, text field for every screen element. There is a label and there is a text field here. You can see that. So I want to use some important fields. I want to use some important fields here. So first option, I want to use, for example, first name. And this is a blank value I'm providing with some width. For example, 15 pixels I'm using. And similarly, I'm trying to use something like last name with some blank value here. I'm trying to use some blank value, but I want to use some width here with 15 pixels. And similarly, for example, email. So I'm using a label for each field and I'm adjusting some width here. So country, I'm just making blank, and you can use some width here with some 15 pixels, or you can use 15 EM. EM is one of the unit to define the width pixels. You can also use EM. EM is a unit. And similarly, let me use other options here. For mobile number, let me use this value and width. So I'm using these fields here in our case. Now, first let me check whether the output is really displayed or not. After that, we'll try to understand how exactly this form is created. First, I want to test it. So what you can do is you can use your form object dot place at, and you can place it on content. You can use form object dot place at, and you can place it on content. So, or else let me use content 2. I want to place it on content 2. So let me try that here. And let me refresh. And let me check it in the latest browser. So there is a form here. Let me test it here. So at the bottom, you can see there are some fields with first name, last name, email, country, mobile number, location, state, designation. So some text fields are created, and every text field here is associated with one label. Every text field is associated with one label, and whenever you are using text field, as I said, we have to use value property. text field, we have to use value property. And every text field is associated with a label screen element here. So because of that, we are able to get this particular form with some fields. Now, let us understand technicalities here. This particular form is created internally by using a content array here. This is a form, but I can say technically so here this is a form created with this particular coding. Form is created. You can see this is our form object. O simple form is our form object here. And most importantly, I can say content. Content is here. Content is nothing but it is an array here, and it is a property of a form. Form contains one property, that is content. And content is of type array. You can see everything is included within square bracket here. You can see that. There's a square bracket here, there's a square bracket here. So what I mean to say is content is a property of a form, but it is a array type of data type. Content is a property of form, but it is expecting the array. So different properties will expect different things. So in this case, content is expecting an array, and you can observe that here because there is a square bracket. Content contains a square bracket, begin, square bracket, close, and within that we are able to add all these things. Within that we are able to add all these things. So let us check the documentation once. I'm going to API documentation. Under API documentation, you can see here this is important. So this is the documentation of a form. It contains several properties, and it also contains some special property that is content, and it is expecting an array. And whenever a property is expecting an array, then you can also call it as aggregation property here. If any property is expecting collection of screen elements or collection of values in the form of an array, so that property technically we call it as a aggregation property. We call it as a aggregation property. So aggregation property generally expects collection of values by using an array. But you can see there are other properties here. There is some other property, it is expecting Boolean. Something like there is some more property expecting integer value. And you can see empty span, integer value it is expecting. And you can see minimum width, it is expecting some integer value. So, but in this case, if you closely observe, aggregation property, content is aggregation property, and it is expecting an array here. So let me write a simple note. Simple form screen element contains content property. And this content property is a aggregation property here. content property is a aggregation property, so it expects collection of values or collection of screen elements. Using array concept. So I told you the purpose of array is to hold collection of values at a time. In the scripting syntaxes, I've already told you that array is to hold collection of values at a time. So I can say content property is an aggregation property. Content property is an aggregation property expecting collection of values or using array concept. So why I'm saying array concept? Because you can see in the documentation they are giving a square bracket here, begin and close. So that is nothing but an array. Square bracket begin, square bracket close. Within that, you can provide several values or several screen elements or several objects, whatever. So you have to notice this point. And then what I can say is technically I can say this label, this first name is a label that will be stored at index something like array index 0. And I can say this particular text field, the first text field will be stored internally inside a array index 1. And similarly, this label is stored at 2. And then the second text field, this will be stored at array index 3. And then the next label is at array index 4. And then the next text field is stored at array index 5. So this is how fields are stored inside a content array because it is an aggregation. This is how the screen elements are internally stored under content array, because content array means it can expect collection of values or collection of screen elements by using index 0, index 1, index 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So this is how things will happen when you use that standard coding. Text field. So this is what happens internally. Index 7. So whatever it can be a label, or it can be a text field, or it can be a drop down or checkbox. Whatever you add inside the content array, it will be stored by using this technique which you are observing on your screen. It need not be a label. It can be a text field, it can be a checkbox or drop down or a radio button, whatever, but ultimately content array will store the screen elements by using array concept which is seen on your screen. So now, so because of this, I can say ultimately, I can say we are getting the screen elements here. Because of that, ultimately, we are expecting the screen elements in your output screen. Okay, that is not a matter, but you can see at the bottom there is a form, and form contains all these fields. Now, as a developer, you need to know how to capture the values of these screen element fields. You need to know how to capture the values from these screen element fields. So as I said earlier, this first label is stored at array index 0. And as I said, this first field, the first field will be maintained under content array at array index 1. Similarly, last name is technically stored inside index 1, index 2. Similarly, the last name contains the text field and it will be maintained inside array index 3. Similarly, I can say text field is stored inside array index 5. Then country is a text field here, contains an array which is stored at index 7. And similarly, label, email is a label here, it is maintained at and country is a label which is maintained at index 6. So that is how the labels and the text fields in this program are stored from starting with index 0 from first name to designation. So now, as a developer, you need to know how to assign the values. You need to know how to capture its values. You need to know how to assign the values to the form fields. You need to know how to capture the values from form fields. So first let me write here. If I want to assign values to form fields, then you need to follow the syntax. I want to assign values to form fields, then what you need to do is, first of all, you need to use your form object here. You have to use your form object, and on form object, you need to call get content method here. By using a form object, you need to call get content method. So when you call get content method, it returns content here. It returns content here. And after that, by using form object dot get content, so definitely it returns content of type array. When you use form dot get content, it returns the content of type array. So you can use like this now. content square bracket with 1 dot, you can use set value, and I want to set first name value, for example, some Ajay, something like this. So content one refers to the first name text field in this example. That is a behavior. Content 1 will refer to the first name text field. In that, it will assign this Ajay as a value. And similarly, you can use like this. Content 3 dot set value, and you can set some values for example, Oasis. So content 3 in this example refers to last name text field. Content 3 in this example refers to last name text field. So it will assign this Oasis as a value. And similarly, you can use other things like content of 5 dot set value, and I want to set something like Ajay at oasis.com. So it will refer to email text field. It refers to an email text field if you use this type of syntax. Because content 5 is going to maintain email field value. So content 5 refers to email text field. Similarly, content 7 dot set value, it will refer to country. So I'm using country India here. So this is the technique you can utilize if you want to assign the values to form fields. This is the technique you can utilize to assign the values to form fields. First, get the content, and by using content array, you can set the values. First, get the content, then by using content array, you can set the values. So that is a technique you need to follow. If you are using a form option, and let us understand how to capture values from form fields. Let us understand how to capture values from form fields. Then what you need to do here is, first let me write this, capture values from form fields. So if you want to capture values from form fields, then what you can do is you can make use of, again, first you need to make use of your form object dot get content. First you need to get that content array. First you need to get that content array by using form dot get content method. Form dot get content, it returns content array here. It returns content array. And after that, what you can do is you can use like this, content 1 dot get value. So it will capture your first name value from that form. Similarly, you can use content of 3 dot get value to get last name value from that particular form. And same thing, you can use content of 5 dot get value, and you can use, you can get something like email ID here. Country, 7.getValue. So this is the approach you need to use in order to capture values from form fields. First, you need to know how form is created. You need to know the behavior of an array. Then you can easily implement assigning the values and capturing the values to that form. So, first let me copy this code. You can use that code. Now, what I want to do is I want to create two buttons here. For this particular form, I want to create two buttons at the bottom of this form. So what you need to do is I want to create two buttons. One is to assign, another is to capture. One is to assign, another is to capture. So don't think about other activities. When I'm focusing on a form concept, just think about. So again and again, we are going to use this form to get the data from backend system. Okay, so don't think about other activities in the same example. So yeah. Now what I want to do is I want to create some button here like button 1 equal to new sap.ui.button. And for this button, I want to use some text here. And at the same time, I want to use something like text as something like set values. Just for our understanding, I'm writing like that. Just to make you understand, I'm using the text of a button as set values. Now, the most interesting thing and the very first time we are doing now, for this particular button, I want to assign one event with a function. This is the first time we are doing, and this is going to play a vital role in the coming classes. For a button, I'm going to use an event, and for that event, I want to assign some function. So if you closely observe this documentation, under documentation, you can see there is a button, and button contains some documentation, and button contains one event here. If you closely observe this, a button contains an event that is a press event, and it is expecting a function. Button contains press event, and it is expecting some function. So this is the first time I'm going to use the event. So just observe the approach here. You can put comma. You can put comma here, and then you can use like press. That is the event name of button. That is the event name of a button. And for this button, I want to assign some function. For example, set function, set fun, set data fun. So that is a function I want to assign here. And similarly, let me create one more button. You can use button 1.place at some content 3, something like that. There's a content 3 here. So you can place it on content 3. Now, I want to create another button that is just to capture the values. I want to use another button that is just to capture the values. So let me copy this. And I'm taking this as button 2, and for our understanding, I'm writing like capture values. And I want to assign another function that is capture data fun. And I want to place that button on some content area. So this is the first time we are using button, and at the same time we are assigning a function to the press event of a button. So this is how you can create a button. And for a button, we are using a press event. We are using a press event for a button, and for that button press event, we are assigning set data function, capture data function. So this is the technique to assign a function to the event of screen element. This is one of the technique to assign a function to the event of a screen element. So let me write a simple note. Syntax to assign a function to event of a screen element. So you can use like this, some event name colon function name. Event name colon function name. So this is one of the technique. For example, we are using press event for a button, and we are assigning set data function. And for press event, we are assigning some capture data function, whatever. And say, for example, if you are using, for example, like drop down, you can see here. For a drop down, I want to use some function. So you can see drop down box contains mainly one of the event here. There is search help event. There is a search help event, and there will be some more events here. You can see there will be some event. Okay, you can see there is one of the event that is nothing but change event here. There is a change event. Similarly, you can see radio button group. Let me go to a radio button group here. And radio button group also contains some documentation. And you can see radio button group contains one event that is nothing but a select event here. Radio button group contains an event that is nothing but select event. So in that case, an event is always expecting a function here. Event is always expecting a function. So that's the reason why in that situation, you can use like this, select, then function name. Something like that. So what I mean to say is just use event name of that screen element. Use event name of that screen element, put colon, and then function name. Put event name left side, colon, then function name. That's it. So different screen elements will have different events, but ultimately, whatever may be the event, but this is the syntax to assign a function to the event of screen element. Different screen elements contains different event names, but ultimately this is the same syntax you should use whenever you want to assign any function to any event of screen element. Event name colon function name. So in the same fashion we have used here. In the same fashion we have used here. Now, but how to implement that function? Function means it should have some functionality. Function means it should have some functionality. So as a developer, we need to write some functionality inside a function. So what you can do is we can implement functions. So this is the technique you have to use, function colon. You can use function colon that function name, or else you can use like this, something like set data. Let me try like this first, set data. You can use like function name, and you can put, so set data function. In this you can write some piece of code here. You can write your functionality according to requirement. Similarly, I want to take one more function, that is function capture data fun, and within flower brackets you can write some functionality here. Within flower brackets you can write some functionality. So that is how you can implement your function. If you want to implement a function, you have to use a function keyword and then function name. You have to use function keyword, function name, and within these flower brackets you can implement your functionality. Function name, within the flower brackets you can implement some functionality. For example, in set data function, I want to assign the values to the form. I want to assign the values to a form, so you can use like this, simple form object dot first get content. You can use get content method and it returns some content here. And then you can use like this, content of first one dot, content of first screen element, that is first name dot set value. And I want to assign something like some Vijay as a value. Similarly, content 3 dot set value, and I want to use, for example, Oasis. So this is a technique you have to follow. So I'm just using some of the fields. Then let me take one more field. Dot set value. So this is how you can assign the values to the form after capturing get content array. After capturing the content array, you can set the values to the form. After capturing content array, you can set the values to a form. Similarly, I want to capture the values. In previous function, we are assigning the values, but in the capture data function, the values. So you can use like this, where first of all use your form object dot get content. This is compulsory. You have to get the content here. After getting the content array, you have to use like content array one index dot get value. You can use like get value here. And I'm expecting the first name value here, so you can store it in. Similarly, let us use other options. 3, 5, 7, 9. First name, last name, email, some country, mobile. So that is how you can capture. Now, after capturing, I just want to display in the form of a pop-up box or alert box. After capturing these values, I want to display these values as a pop-up box or as a message using alert concept. Then what you can do is you can use like this, sap.ui.commons.messagebox dot alert is a method. Alert is a method. For that method, you can pass all the values here by passing the variables. First name, and then last name. You can pass all the variables here after capturing those values. I just want to show all the values in a alert message. So that is how first name, last name, email, country, mobile. So everything I want to show in the form of alert box. So alert is a method you have to use, and alert method belongs to message box class. It belongs to message box class, and that message box also belongs to sap.ui.commons package. So let me test it. First, let me test it here. If there is any problem, I'll rectify the syntax problem. There is some syntax error. Let me check here. Button 2, button 1. Okay, let me check it in Internet Explorer. So there is an error. Let me show that. So expected bracket in line number 238. Let me go to that, line number 238. Line number 238. Okay, here plus is missing. Okay, now let me test it once. So now the screen is loaded with all these things here along with two buttons here. So let me test it in the external browser. And you can see there is a form and there are two buttons, set value, capture value. So if I click on set values, now you can see Vijay, Oasis, vijay@ca.com. So these are the values assigned to the form here. These are the values assigned to a form. But now what I can do, if required, I can change the values. For example, Sunil Kumar. I can change it and I've changed some values here. Now I want to capture these values. So if you click on capture button, then you can see here it is showing an alert message with Sunil Kumar, sunil@ca.com, country India, and phone number. So that means we are able to capture the values successfully here. We are able to capture the values successfully from the form. And when I click on set, it will set the values what we have assigned through coding. And when you click on capture, it will capture those values and we are displaying in the form of just a alert message here. And so that is how we are going to use a form. This is a basic concept of how to utilize a form. But in the coming classes, we are going to use the form as an input and we can also display the output record coming from OData ABAP service. We can assign the values, we can submit the values to the backend system via OData ABAP service. So we are going to do that when I go for CRUD operations here. Inserting, deleting, updating, getting single record. So when I use CRUD operations, then I'll be using form concept again. Today's class is just to make you understand the behavior and some methods of that form. And say, for example, yesterday CSS concept. For example, I want to apply the same CSS to this form concept. The style sheet which we have created yesterday, I want to assign to this form also. Then what we can do? It's very simple. You can, so this is where form is placed on content area. This is the line which is placing form on the content. So before that, why don't you just add a line here? Something like simple form dot, you can use like add style class. Yesterday I was telling you add style class is a very common method. Add style class is a very common method, so you can use that method here. And why don't you assign your yesterday's style, that is my style, you can assign. My style is assigned to row repeater, and the same thing we are assigning it to a form also here. If you want, you can assign a different style to the form and different style to row repeater. That is also possible. We can assign single style to multiple screen elements. We can also assign different styles to different screen elements. So different combinations are possible. First, let me test it. Let me refresh. Now you can see here our, let me refresh. Now you can see at the bottom, the style is applied even for our form screen element. Set the values, capture the values, so that will work. There won't be any problem. But at present, we are able the same style to form also, including row repeater. So let me write some simple note here. If required, we can add same style class to multiple screen elements. If required, we can add same style class to multiple screen elements. So that is possible. And if required, we can add different style class. We can also add different style class to different screen elements. So this is also possible. So please notice that. And let me copy the code for your reference. This is possible. And this is also possible. Style 1 here, style 2 here. Style 1 for row repeater, style 2 for simple form. You can try that, it will work. And this is the concept you need to know. Your alert is something like your write statement. Use by using alert statement here. And most importantly, syntax to implement a function. Syntax to implement a function, you have to use a function keyword. You have to use function keyword and you have to
Hello, Vijendra, are you there?
I think none of us are able to hear you. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, I think there's a power shutdown there.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, then let's disconnect.
Yeah. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
We can end it, right? Okay.
Yeah, we can. Oh, this weekend. Finish recording.